What's up, Data Transformers? This is Bolaji, and welcome to Data Career Transformation, the show where we watch analytics engineers, data analysts, and data scientists transform their careers. Today, we are talking to a seasoned finance executive and data architect. He's a business strategist with a strong background in data engineering, financial management, corporate advisory. I mean, this guy's ability to design data-driven solutions that optimize your financial operations and drive business intelligence are legendary. But here's what you don't know about him. He does enjoy, playing 10-hour-long board games with friends. I don't know, are you guys still friends after 10 hours of board games? We're gonna have to talk about that. He could talk a little bit like Donald Duck, which makes small kids laugh. I'm a little concerned about the practice before you actually got good, sounding like Donald Duck.
Yeah,
We're gonna have to. We're gonna. We're gonna have to get into that for sure. He loves making weird sand cookies and pancakes together with his niece. That is too cute. And you might catch him talking about philosophy in one breath, finance and technology in the next. From the Randstad, Netherlands, alsjeblieft, help my welcome. Please help me welcome the founder and data architect at Max Q Analytics, Philip Boontje. Welcome, Philip.
Nice to be here.
It is a great pleasure. I've got to say, board games, my wife and I are really into board games. We have 2 kids. We got them into board games as well. The very first marathon board game we played, Philip, was Risk. Have you ever played Risk before?
Yes.
Risk is a classic. It got us into, we actually got introduced, this is almost like our gateway drug, Philip. We got introduced to Spiel des Jahres, the game of the year from Germany. And we started to, discover Settlers of Catan and Carcassonne and all these other strategy games. What would be, if you had to think of like your top 3 to 5 board games, give us some recommendations, Philip. What do you like?
Preferably, I like these games where it's more strategic, where less luck and more about that you play your cards right. And especially when there's a game where you have your cards and then the game is a bit different for different people. So you have Agricola, you have Twilight Imperium. Those are the 2 big ones that I like playing. And then also when you just with family and friends, you can always play this train game, Ticket to Ride. It's like less emotionally draining, physically draining. You can actually talk to your family after that playing that. Yeah, so those are the 3 I really like.
That's really good. As a matter of fact, my wife gets very stressed out with these competitive games, although she loves the strategy games as well. She gets very stressed out. So we started to find strategic cooperative games. Pandemic is one that we enjoy playing.
That's a good one.
Yes. So you could go full out competition against your family and maybe not talk for the next 12 hours, or you could do some of the cooperative ones as well. This obsession with Donald Duck, Philip, I'm a little bit fascinated. Where in the world did this come from?
Well, eventually you find out everybody tries to whistle or make some sounds when you're young. Eventually you end up making this noise that really sounds like a Donald Duck sound. And then, it's very funny. When you hear it, it's actually Donald Duck from the video and how it's being pronounced. Yeah.
Okay. So we're not going to ask you to do the whole interview as Donald Duck, although I am tempted. People. We're not going to do that to Philip today. He didn't prep. He's got to warm up the vocal cords, but we're going to ask if you can give us a sample at some point during this conversation. But before we get to the Donald Duck impressions, Philip, you have the most fascinating background. You are deep in the finance space. You've been a chief financial officer, but you didn't start out there. You got a chemical engineering undergrad degree.
Correct.
So from chemical engineering to CFO to data architect, you got to pick a lane, Philip. You can't be good at everything at once. Give me your origin story. Yeah. You started in engineering. At some point, data became a passion. Tell us how you became this superhero.
The chemical engineering is the technical part. I just picked one and then I finished it. And in my master's degree, I found out that I really liked the bridge between hardcore tech and actually building scalable companies. And also take the commercial and the financial component part of those and cross that bridge. And that's why when I graduated, I went into financial analysis and then corporate finance to really help startups with their venture rounds. So I knew how to tell the technology story to investors. Bringing technology into the world from imagination to reality, that's really the part I really enjoy. And I've been in that. That's the origin story, red line. And I've been weaving around that line first as a financial analyst, and then I started as a CFO for one of those startups I helped out with the funding round. And there I learned how to scale a tech company. And then I thought I would like to do the data part again. That is inside that tech startup environment.
Yes, I'm really intrigued by this, Philip, because a lot of us tend to think that successful careers are linear. You start at point A, and then every year, every couple of years, you're progressing up, you're getting bigger titles, and you're staying in that general lane.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm learning that sometimes it can help to almost sort of weave across a few different domains that might hold your interest. And you can actually bring learnings and knowledge from one domain into another domain and make that brand new and innovative.
Yeah. Yeah, but there's a core part of it that I was always around scale-ups, and either as an external consultant or as a financial analyst or data analyst or as a legal advisor. I had a stint, to help out with legal stuff when I was CFO to save costs. You also have to become a partial legal person. So yeah, but the domain is how to scale something from, let's say, 500,000 annual revenue to, let's say, 5 or 10, and how especially do you scale the back end without without dying from overload. That's the thing I've been weaving around.
Wow, I love that. I recall in looking at your work history, you spent 3 years as a financial analyst, as you've talked about, 5 years as a financial director, and then 3 years as data architect. You had some experience with spreadsheets early on as a young financial analyst. I'd
I did.
love to hear you break down how you started with spreadsheets and when you realized that they were no longer going to get the job done.
Yeah, so when you get fresh out of college/university, I used to work with a lot of these more advanced software applications to do these calculations. And then I
Yes.
came into the financial domain in Amsterdam, scale-up environment. And there, like all the partners and financial managers, investment managers, everybody just moves around with Excel sheets. That's what the world is. And what we did is just forecast the cash flow from, okay, let's invest in this certain tech stack, start developing it, and then as you grow your top line, you expand your bottom line, and that's et
Yes.
cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
But as the questions from investors became more complex, you make the model more complex, you start adding more, and you have all these beautiful formulas that are extremely heavy
Yeah.
that just break,
Yes.
and eventually you would completely pull apart your CPU.
My
And you would
gosh.
be at a point like very like this. Eventually, it comes down to making a decision. Let's go yes or no, or how much
Yes.
are we going to invest? And then people start moving around in the Excel sheet. And when they move a parameter, and then the entire Excel sheet crashes, it's a very bad experience. So I
That's
was
a
really fed up
disaster.
with why? Why do we? That was like 2015. It's like
Yes.
why are we living in this advanced world with quantum computers coming our way and AI coming our way, and we're still struggling with these? And then there must be something better. And then I started to slowly go towards data engineering, or started to
Mm.
explore that. Like, can't we like systematize this, standardize this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And I believe R was the language that you first started to use as you evolved from spreadsheets.
Yeah, so one of the challenges I faced was like I helped out a startup, which was about
Startup.
flexible, a big lithium-ion battery container, and they were going to buy and sell electricity. In Europe, you have like an intraday market where you can just sell electricity,
Oh, wow.
buy
Okay.
buy low, sell high, actually. But that's
Yes.
really a thing
Yes.
that 10 years ago that wasn't a thing yet, but now it's a huge thing. Just like in California, it's also a thing. And
Mm-hmm.
long story short, we tried to create a collaboration, and there was a data engineer at the other side of the other party who said, yes, oh, I already modeled this entire
Ooh,
container in R, and I have never heard of R
okay.
before. I said, oh yeah, you can model
Okay.
in R? I can too. So for one weekend, I like hardly slept and just got
Oh
all
my
the way. So at
gosh.
the end of the weekend, I showed to the founders like, hey, I built this model to simulate the business case of this
Come on
container on an
now. Yes.
hourly basis. And the
Yes.
conclusion was there was no business case, but
Okay.
there was now she would do the same. There's a huge business case, but back then we didn't have any solar that
Okay.
much, but now we do. So long
Mm-hmm.
story short, but then yeah, I found wow, this is so much better than Excel. And then I found like if you
Mm.
codify your business logic,
Yes.
the entire new world opened up for me. It's like I never want to touch Excel again. It's like
Oh my
I have to,
gosh.
but that was the pivot for me. That really
Of
made like
course.
this weekend was like I want to do this. I could lose myself for a
Wow.
weekend. So Let's go.
Wow.
That was
Wow.
the big shift.
Now, Philip, I do recall you have shared that sometimes when you get focused on something, you can get like obsessively focused. In one weekend, you pivoted those spreadsheets into R and got introduced to the world of data engineering. Amazing. Amazing. So at some point, Philip, you evolved beyond R and discovered DBT. I'm very interested. I love to hear like how people actually learned about DBT and when it started to solve a problem for them. So what was like your DBT introduction?
Yeah, so while I was CFO, I got introduced to a business intelligence consultant, and this person was also moving to DBT, or she was moving to DBT. I never heard of it, but I was extremely good at SQL
Okay.
because I had built like 50 dashboards on top of Postgres database, and everything was
Yeah.
built on views. It was really terrible. We had like 5 views that were on top of each other, and it was really a headache because there was no scheduling, there was no modeling. It was just,
Oh my God.
and then I have to like, yeah, it was not that fun to
My
build it, but it
gosh.
made me extremely competent in SQL. And she said, can you maybe migrate all my clients from the scheduled SQL environment to like a DBT environment? And then I migrated like
Mm,
I think 8 or 5 um, BigQuery projects from like
mm-hmm,
scheduled queries to
mm.
DBT. And then at that moment I was like, this DBT is like magic. It's like it makes the world of data engineering so much more easier and much more
Wow.
fun. And that
Wow.
that when I encountered that in that 2 weeks that I did those migration projects towards DBT, it's like you can actually build a business around DBT. Like it's so good.
Mm.
And then I decided, like, you know what? I'm gonna stop doing the CFO part. I always wanted to build a company. Why not try to build like a DBT implementation consulting company? Let's see how that goes. So that's what I did.
Whoa. Whoa. This was after, so in 2 weeks, you implemented this big migration of these multiple projects, and you were so convinced
No,
you
I didn't
stopped being a
stop. Sorry,
CFO.
I was a
Transition.
bit. I was still, yeah, of course, I was still this afraid engineer guy. I was very accustomed to a good salary, so I had, and slowly. I'm not that adventurous, so it took me two
I
years.
love that. Yes, yes. Okay, yes. So, kids, don't be overly impulsive. This is actually a really good I think the way that you did is a really good model. You saw this sort of upcoming technology that could solve a lot of
Correct.
problems for businesses, and you started to invest more in it. Now, here's something I love to ask people, the Harry Potter question, the sorting hat question from Hogwarts, particularly with you coming almost out of left field. You're coming as a CFO. How did you decide whether data analyst, data scientist, data engineer, or even analytics engineer was going to be the right role for you?
Mm. I don't really have a hardcore opinion on that. I'm a big mix of all of them. I'm a bit analyst, a bit data engineer, a bit data scientist, a bit analyst. So I'm all over the place. But yeah,
Mm.
you have to when you start off as a one-man shop, as a managed
Ah,
service for DB, like you have to be competent in all the
oh,
domains.
that's a good point. That's a good
I did not
point.
know there was not a clear. Just the DBT product was very enticing. I really liked it. But now after 3-4 years working with DBT, I can say I'm definitely not a data engineer. So we have hired someone to do that part, like the hardcore stuff.
Okay.
Because it also overlaps a bit with software engineering. You have to be somewhat advanced with Python. So I'm not. So because I came from the Excel,
Okay.
I didn't came from software engineering. So
Yes.
I'm more like
Yes.
an analytics engineer than a data engineer. And but I'm not a data scientist because I usually take the reference that DBT makes sure that the data is clean and consistent and fresh. And then you
Mm.
give it to the data scientist, and
Mm.
they can bake their bread with it, and they can make the
Mm.
best. You get like the clean tap water, and they are the cooks who make all the things.
Wow.
But I'm more like I want things to be well designed, consistent, good, like an engineer is. So for
Got you.
me, DBT was perfect. Me in the middle, not too hardcore tech, but also not too
Yes.
ad hoc. Just answer this question, please, in 2 days.
Yes. Man, I love that. One thing that's super unique in speaking with you, Philip, is that you have deep interests in very varied areas. So you enjoy cooking. And I could tell from that metaphor you just gave us with the clean water that you're providing to the data scientists, and then they can make anything. Okay, so you
Correct.
make sand cookies and
Sand cookies.
pancakes with your niece.
Yes.
First, I want to know what a sand cookie is, but then secondly, I'd love to know some of the other things you like to cook in the kitchen. So what in the world are you and your niece mixing up? My goodness.
So sand cookies, if you ever have like small kids and you want to teach them how to have fun in the kitchen or learn to make things, you just make dough. So you just have your flour and a bit of sugar, a lot of sugar actually, and butter and some egg yolk is the yellow part, right?
Yes.
And you mix it up and you get the dough, right? It's called dough.
Mm-hmm.
And they already from your youth, do you remember that you would make those dough things and you would try to eat it before it was actually in the oven?
Of course.
Like that. That's so that's and then you have the roller. You remember
Yeah,
those.
yeah.
And then you would just you have these what's that English American word? Shablon
Like,
shapes.
yeah, like the cake, the cookie cutters.
Yeah,
Yes.
stars and hearts and stuff. And
That's
that's you
right.
they can work with their hands. The kids can work with their hands. They can change things and move around and then actually make something. They put it in the oven and you give it to the parents, to my brother and his wife. And then look what I made. She's 4 years old, so it's beautiful. And she can be very proud about what she had made. So that's
This is beautiful. I love this.
introducing them to cooking is the simplest way.
I love it. I love it. That's beautiful. Actually, man, I haven't done that in a while. Goodness, as a parent now, modern life is just so busy. But I did that quite a bit, helping my mother in the kitchen bake various things when I was a child. It really
Exactly.
brings back fond memories. Guys are not always comfortable in the kitchen. I love to hear that you are very comfortable there. What's a meal that you like to prepare when you're not working on these sand cookie masterpieces?
So I really like in Dutch we have a word saying overschotel. And overschotel is actually just it's a big glass thing where you can just put layers and layers of food in it, and eventually top it off with potatoes and then with a lot of cheese, and then put it into the oven. And you have like this big tray of nicely prepared foods. Usually you have all kinds of vegetables and herbs in there. You can mix around with all kinds of herbs. You can make it vegetarian or vegan or a lot of meat, depending on your audience.
Mm-hmm.
So it's and you can make a
That
lot.
sounds delicious. That sounds delicious. Oh my gosh.
Not that
Okay, I'm
creative. You
getting.
just smash a lot of stuff into a big glass bowl and you just put it in the oven. But it's fun.
I'm not mad at that at all. I love that. I love that. Okay, you got me distracted with the overschotel, but let me get
You
focused here.
pronounce it
Focus,
very good. Oh,
people.
very good.
Thank you, my friend. I do enjoy food quite a bit, so I'm gonna have to research that. I'm curious, Philip, considering that when you got started in data as a one-man shop, you were doing all the things. You were wearing all
Correct.
the hats. Today, as your MaxQ has evolved, I'd love to have you share a little bit about what MaxQ does today. And I'm also curious as to how much of your time is being spent in the data still. Like, how much of your work is maintenance work? How much are you building new features for stakeholders or doing troubleshooting? So, first, tell us a little bit about MaxQ.
Yeah, so MaxQ is a DBT implementation and operations company. So a lot of companies really need DBT, but don't have the internal capacity or competence to have a data engineer on board or the budget. We specialize in those companies that are too small to have a really big dedicated data engineering team, but also too big to not have one. So there's this niche. We have identified that niche for like when you run a business between 20 and 200 people.
Yes.
That's the niche.
I
So we
see.
we build the entire data architecture, or we take over the responsibility for one. And
Okay.
so that's always DBT in the middle, and then all of the
Mm-hmm.
extraction, and then also downstream stuff. We build and maintain, and eventually, so we do eventually teach people to, for example, start building their own reports, start building their own tools,
Okay.
start integrating it
Okay.
with Microsoft or Google Sheets or whatever. So that part is the least complex part that eventually they can do themselves. Eventually,
Yes.
you just build the data all the way up to the semantic layer. You get a
Okay.
single source of truth. So you have the first semantic layer, and then the downstream, it's domain specific.
Yes.
for one single shop to own, to really understand. So that's how there's a natural organic
Okay.
barrier. For example, reporting makes less and less sense for us to build the dashboards because all of the business analysts and team leaders they know the context much better.
That's right.
But the single source of
Yes.
truth still has to be right. So that's the
Wow.
part where we stop, preferably,
Yes.
and
Yes.
then we give the handover to the internal team at the company.
Mm, mm, mm. This is a really interesting model. I love how you've been able to find your niche, your ideal customer profile. I know that doesn't happen overnight, as a business person myself. So it must have taken you. I'm actually interested, Philip, how long it took you or what the journey was for MaxQ to hone in on the types of customers it could really help. Maybe there were some that didn't go so well initially.
Yeah, so it really went organically. You start off with one client and you get another one. Primarily, it's those kind of companies that are not that hardcore tech that they have that special domain or people who could actually do it inside
Mm-hmm.
of their company.
Mm-hmm.
But that was always my assumption. But now we have onboarded a few more clients who become more and more techy, who have actual
Mm-hmm.
like AI engineers and software engineers and all those kind of people, and they still say, "Yeah, Philip, you do it. Let your company do it." So I'm
Interesting.
a bit puzzled. When will they start saying like, "Okay, now we will try to do it ourselves"? Or to which extent can you
Yes.
be so competent in your trade? Is that English? Trade for that you're good at
Yes,
something?
yes, exactly.
That
Yes.
even in a very technology driven company with a lot of engineers, you're still so
Yes.
good at what you're good at that they still will say, I prefer working with a dedicated data engineer from an analytics consulting company or analytics
Mm-hmm.
DBT company, let's
Wow.
say, versus.
Wow.
So I'm still exploring there, but the journey has been a lot of patience from our first clients. And when I look at my code, I look away very quickly. It's really, really dramatic.
Oh my gosh. I mean, but I guess this is almost what we would want. We would want to see our growth when we look back. If you look back far enough, you do want to see some growth in what you were able to develop. This is the hard part of putting your work out there, but it's the journey. So let's dig into some data disasters because we love to hear of all these successes. You're good at board games. You're good at making sand cookies. You're good at financial analysis. I want to hear some of your struggles, Philip. Could you maybe share a story of a really hard technical problem that you struggled with and how you approached it?
Yeah, so the hardest struggle we had with one of our clients was that the source systems were not that reliable, and sometimes were
Okay.
even on premise. And they
Okay.
had a lot of source systems, and there were a lot of Excel sheets, and they still use a lot of Excel sheets. And then
Mm-hmm.
the consistency and the fragility, like consistency is low, the fragility is high, and trying to build like a tower. And the
Yes.
foundation, the pillars beneath, like imagine building something in New York and your pillars aren't right. The,
That's
the
tough.
building starts swaying. It's tough.
That's tough.
Eventually,
Yeah.
you're building your 7th or 18th or 20th thing on top of your new
My
dashboard, new
gosh.
report. And then things start breaking down. Things like
Man.
the freshness was for 2 years. There was always one or two sources where the freshness wasn't working very well.
Mm, mm,
So that was one of the reasons we were able to actually find someone who would help us out and then spend maybe one day a week just making sure that all those sources kept being up to date. And that's more
mm,
like something. Now we have things more stable, but it used to be
mm,
really struggle
mm.
to keep things. So it's more like a data engineering slash extraction problem, not so
Right.
much a DBT problem. And that was the hardest struggle I had. It was really frustrating actually, because you want to
Yeah.
deliver something that works. That's good.
Yes, that sounds really complicated, really frustrating as you've illustrated. Philip, you've shared that a lot of people have this misconception that you just make dashboards all day. But it seems like dashboards would be like the 20th floor or the fifth floor on this tower. And if things are not working below that anywhere below that level, the dashboard work is minimal.
Yeah, yeah. So indeed, the people will not always understand like and the more you grow in my data career as I really become competent in what I'm doing,
Mm.
the dashboard is less and less and less important because it's all about how solid. It's like if you want to tell a story, there's eventually how do you say in English, a word book, a dictionary with all the words, what it
Yes,
means.
yes. That's right.
Then, yeah, right. So the entire thing is like as you grow, you learn how to tell stories with the dashboards and everything. But you end up, yeah, you cannot make nice stories if your data model isn't properly structured, if
Yes.
your data catalog is not right. So, yeah, I
Wow.
spend hardly any time dashboarding anymore. It's just really consistent modeling of that one, and then everything. Then if the dictionary is right, or is right themselves.
This reminds me of the Tower of Babel. This
Yes,
concept, if anyone is not familiar, it's a whole bunch of people trying to build a really tall tower, but they speak different languages. And so how do they communicate? They're all very competent, but they're speaking different languages. This
yes,
actually reminds me of you've expressed a passion for semantic layer, Philip.
yes.
I'd love if you could maybe, for the people watching, explain your understanding of the semantic layer and what value it brings to an organization.
Yeah, so the one of the fun parts of being a data engineer is that you actually try to solve the question, what is the single source of truth? That's the
Yes.
question. And 5 years ago, that there was not actually a consistent answer to that. Like revenue was different definitions across the company. And so
Wow.
when I encountered the semantic layer 2, 3 years ago and the underlying vision it has, I was like, how great would it be is that you would actually look for what was the revenue of this client in this month. It doesn't matter if you ask it to, if you either generate an embedded chart or you put it into Power BI or Looker or preset or a metabase or whatever, or you
Mm-hmm.
actually ask it to
Mm-hmm.
ChatGPT, which is connected to DBT. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter. It's always the same answer. That if you can actually, if there's not a single, almost no single company I encountered yet that has this so well structured.
Mm.
So I'm really looking forward to that and what the semantic layer can realize. Yeah, creating like a single dictionary, as I was saying, like a single dictionary.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
I love this concept. I love this concept. And you're actually making it very accessible to those who are not so familiar with the concept. I know that semantic layer more and more is going to be something that companies get excited about and look to roll out. You have a passion not just for the data side, the finance side. You're even talking about like analytics agents, AI,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
people talking to their data. Paint this picture for me, Philip. If this is the future, I
Yeah.
want to be there.
Yeah, so I'm really interested and actively working with building some demos and prototypes around these analytics agents. So in
Yes.
my dream, you would just like you not even sit behind a screen, but they
Mm-hmm.
would just sit and you have a conversation and just have a conversation with this agent, and this agent is somehow connected to your semantic layer,
Yes.
but also connected to all other kind of assets in your company. It's like maybe you've
That's
heard
right.
of those agent, they call this agent swarms, where one agent is connected to a swarm of other agents, and then you have the
Ooh.
semantic layer is one of those components. But
Mm-hmm.
and then you can, and that's so advanced that then the semantic layer is just a one component. And you can sit in the boardroom with your executive team and actually have a
Right.
discussion. And then you
Right.
encounter something, and then you can actually ask a question to an agent that is capable of leveraging all of these different sources
Hmm.
and the semantic layer too. Like, can you show me the marketing campaign? It will show you the marketing campaign, the video, but
Yes.
also how many people watched it and what the return on investment was and what the return on ad spend was.
Stop it.
And then it becomes magic, and then it becomes real magic. And we're
My
not there yet,
gosh.
but this is really the semantic layer is like the pivotal thing that's gonna enable these kind of situations. And
Wow.
I'm really curious how that's gonna evolve.
Man, don't threaten me with a good time. This sounds exciting, but let's be honest actually, Philip. As we see artificial intelligence advance more and more and creep into the world of data engineering, is there a risk that these agents are going to replace data engineers?
I'm not sure yet. I
Mm,
don't know the answer. Yes and no, but it's gonna replace the
mm,
stupid stuff. For the last, I think I could I redo my entire data career,
yes.
not in 4 years, but maybe in 2 or 1, with the tools
Uh-huh.
I have now. So if all those
Oh,
AI agents that are now available to help you with coding and help you with learning, so I
yeah.
would have been more competent faster. So
Mm-hmm.
I think there are going to be more data engineers in the world, not less, because it's more accessible.
Interesting, interesting, interesting. You know, Tristan Hardy, the CEO of DBT Labs, he just wrote about a similar concept just a few days ago on his blog. the analytics engineering roundup. And he introduced this concept I had never heard of. I'll link to the blog post. It's really interesting. But he talks about how with certain technological innovations, as the price goes down, like for example, the price of coal back in the 19th century started to go down. So coal as a technology for heating and things, it started to become more advanced. The price went down. Economists thought that because it was becoming more efficient, people would use less of it. But the opposite happened. Because it was becoming so efficient and becoming so cheap, people started to find new uses for coal. And so the demand for coal actually increased, which wasn't great for our ozone layer or global warming, but that's beside the point. The point being, if you think about even data engineering and AI, as these AI agents start to do more and more of the, like you said, the stupid work, maybe some of the repetitive work.
Yeah, the repetitive one. Yeah.
Maybe it puts data engineers out of business, or maybe it opens up new use cases and data engineers have to retrain themselves, but they
Yeah,
move up the value stack.
yeah, you move up to